He won the Peter Pan, but can he upset the Belmont Stakes? Let's talk about Hill Road. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, here with the Belmont Stakes Contender Spotlight Series preview looking at Hill Road, the Chad Brown runner coming off an impressive victory in the Peter Pan. Now, before we get to this horse, I want to remind you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel, whether those are race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, and so much more. We got you covered all week next week for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. We got you covered for the Saratoga Meet, Keeneland Fall, Breeders Cup, and well beyond. So make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. Additionally, if you're not yet a player on NYRA Bets, this is a great time to do so. Make sure to use the promo code Belmont25. If you use that code when you're signing up, you get up to a $200 deposit match bonus and a free $25 deposited into your account so you can play that bet however you would like. So, like I said, it's a great promotion, a little bit of free money, and a deposit match bonus up to $200 as well. All right. Well, listen, let's dive in and talk about Hill Road. This is such an interesting horse, and it's interesting that you have a couple of horses who started their careers overseas who are going to be running in the Belmont Stakes. Both Hill Road and Heart of Honor are like that. That's rather uncommon for this sort of a Triple Crown Series race. But Hill Road came over last year, ran so well in that Breeders Cup Juvenile at Del Mar, did so at huge odds at 61-1, and was a horse that, took a little bit of time, obviously, to come back from that race, was transferred to the Chad Brown barn, decided to stay here in North America, run on the dirt, and took a little time, ran in that Tampa Bay Derby, then spiked a fever before the Wood Memorial. And so as a result, scratched out of the Wood, and he kind of fell off everybody's radar until he comes back in the Peter Pan, and it's pretty obvious that Chad has his Belmont horse in Hill Road. But let's talk about some of the dynamics of this horse, who I think is a really interesting runner, but is a deep closer as well. And again, this is going to be a shorter field. Currently, looks like 6 horses. Maybe there's another entry or 2 that come in. So maybe the field expands out to as many as 8, but currently stands at 6. And when you look at Hill Road, like I said, transferred to Chad Brown's barn after starting his career overseas running on the turf. And we just got word that Irad Ortiz Jr. is going to be up on the mount. Now, that's significant for one reason in particular, which is that Flavien Prat rode this horse to the Peter Pan victory, and Flavien Prat has opted to stay on Baeza, which is understandable. Baeza, of course, ran a huge race to finish third, very close third in the Kentucky Derby, was coming with every stretch and every stride. So the fact that Flavien decides to stay on Baeza, not that shocking. There is therefore needed to be a mount on Hill Road. Irad made all the sense in the world. He didn't have a mount in the Belmont Stakes. He and Chad have a very good relationship. So him moving on to Hill Road makes plenty of sense. And quite frankly, Irad on a closer is not a bad thing. He's a strong closer. He's always very good, I think, at being able to, make his way from the back of the pack. So a lot to like there in terms of the connections. And you look at the sire, Quality Road, a versatile sire. And I think that speaks to the sort of versatile horse that Hill Road is. He can run on the turf. He can run on the dirt. He can probably go a little shorter. He can go a little bit longer. Hill Road and Quality Road does all those things. You look at Quality Road's numbers, there's a reason he's such an effective sire. And he's not maybe the flashiest sire. He's not curling. He's not into mischief. He doesn't maybe produce some of those top tier runners that we are accustomed to seeing. But man, he just turns out super consistent horses that tend to be very sound as well. So Hill Road comes from that background. And then you have the Dam Side pedigree with the Lemon Drop Kid influence. So plenty of distance there, stamina, and like I said, the versatility that Quality Road brings. Now, in terms of his efforts here in North America, I mentioned that third place in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That was significant because nobody was making up ground that day. That was a merry-go-round track at Del Mar, and you didn't see anyone making up ground other than Hill Road, who was sitting in last place or close to it for most of that race and closed all the way to finish third behind Citizen Bull and Gaming that day. So that was kind of an eye-popping performance, and he was completely dead on the board at 61-1. Then he, like I said, he comes back, runs third in the Tampa Bay Derby. I didn't think ran that well that day. That was the first time Chad put blinkers on him. He didn't get much of a pace, admittedly. Owen Almighty, Chancellor McPatrick finishing ahead of him. And it was an effort that was okay, but not great. And then you see him in the Peter Pan and really look good tracking down McAfee and Captain Cook in those final strides. Now, I think that's going to be the big question when we project Hill Road moving forward is based upon these efforts. What is to come for this horse, and can he handle a step up in class like this? Because when you look at his past performances, he wins in debut going a mile at Leopardstown, and then is immediately stepped up to a Group 1 race, the Vincent O'Brien National at Curra. Now, he finishes further back, obviously 7th in that race, but still, to be spotted there was very impressive. Then goes over and is spotted in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Like I said, runs that big race. Goes to the bench for a while, and then comes back and runs in that Tampa Bay Derby. Now, listen, Owen Almighty's a nice horse. I think he's a nicer horse than a lot of us gave him credit for. He finished 5th in the Kentucky Derby. And, granted, he finished last in the Bluegrass, or tied for last in the Bluegrass. And, won both the Sam F. Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby down there at Tampa Bay Downs. But again, losing to Owen Almighty, losing to Chancellor McPatrick, who, by the way, is getting cut back and is going to be running the Woody Stevens, it's not as if he was beating a great group of horses there at Tampa Bay Downs. And there's maybe some question about how good were the horses he beat even in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, because a lot of them have come back to be very effective at 3 years old. East Avenue might be one of the better ones that he beat that day. That horse had some excuses in that race. Then he goes to the Peter Pan. You see that big jump up in buyer speed figures, 94, and certainly would need to move forward from that. But here's the thing. This is only his 3rd start in 2025. He had a little bit of a layoff in between that Tampa Bay Derby and the Peter Pan because of that fever spike, but he was working consistently that whole time. So in some ways, he's 3rd back in the form cycle, even though there is a line there in his past performances. And if that's the case, you would expect him to be peaking for this 3rd effort. So he could absolutely move forward from the 94, move up to, 100, 101. And that puts him right there as a win contender potentially. But I still think there's a couple of questions as to answer. One is, can he close against this quality of field? This is going to be a shorter field. Now, one of the things you'll notice is he didn't get blistering fractions in either of those first 2 races. He got pretty slow fractions down there in the Tampa Bay Derby. I mean, they go 1:12 and 2 to the 6 furlong mark. That's slow for Tampa Bay. That's a pretty speed favoring track. And for them to run that pace, he was never really going to close into much. They went a little faster in the Peter Pan, obviously stretching out to 1 mile and 1/8. They go 1:11 and 2, almost 1:11 and 3 to the 6 furlong mark. So the pace is a little bit better for him to run into. And again, he's able to track down McAfee and Captain Cook. Well, Captain Cook's cutting back. McAfee's going to the Ohio Derby, if I'm not mistaken. So again, he's running against good, not great horses by any stretch. And, he did it on the wrong lead, admittedly, coming down the stretch. So again, there's still some maturity that needs to happen here. There's still some development for him. And I'm sure Chad is continuing to work on him in that regard. But again, now he's facing the big boys. He's facing Journalism. He's facing Sovereignty. He's facing Baeza. He's facing Rodriguez. He's facing horses that have won bigger races, gone against tougher competition, and have done it at the distance and longer. And so, at the 1.25 miles in the case of Journalism and Baeza and Sovereignty having run in the Kentucky Derby. So now Hill Road is going to be in another race where there's probably not going to be as much pace because, again, as it stands right now, it looks like Rodriguez is really the only speed horse in the race. Again, there's rumblings that maybe another horse is going to get entered. Maybe you see a horse like Crudo get entered who could present some front-end speed and challenge to Rodriguez. But if it stays the way it is, Rodriguez is alone in the lead, setting modest fractions. And you kind of have to ask yourself, is Hill Road better at closing than Sovereignty? I have a hard time thinking that. Is Hill Road better at closing than Journalism? On a neutral day, I don't think so. Maybe, the 3 races in 5 weeks takes a little bit of an added pressure. Is he better at closing than Baeza? Baeza showed a hell of a closing kick in that Kentucky Derby. So, getting up there, almost nabbing Journalism for 3rd. So, listen, the question is, do you think he's better than those 3? Can he track down a horse like Rodriguez who's loose on the lead? Again, this is a lot different than getting McAfee and Captain Cook at the wire at Aqueduct. You're facing the big boy now, and can he continue to take a step forward? I'm a little skeptical. I think he's going to make his run. If the field stays relatively short, I could see him hitting 4th. Maybe a horse like Rodriguez really fades. Maybe a horse like Baeza doesn't fire. But to me, I just have a hard time thinking he's going to take that huge step forward to beat both Sovereignty and Journalism. Could he beat one of them? Sure. Could he beat both? I just really don't see it because, again, he continues to sit at the back of the field. even though he's got the blinkers on now, 2 straight races, he continues to show no early speed. Now, the blinkers might help him pass horses, but it's not putting him any closer to the pace. And again, how far back is he going to be on the back stretch? Is he, because he seems to be a prime candidate to be sitting last. I actually think Sovereignty could be sitting a little closer than Hill Road. So again, he's going to have to outkick Sovereignty. Good luck with that. I mean, I just don't necessarily see that winning recipe there for Hill Road in this regard, but certainly a horse that, again, could continue to improve, could run a big race. And as I've said with Sovereignty, as I've said with Journalism, it's all about how the track is playing. If the track is speed favoring, good luck making up a lot of ground from the back. It's hard. Now, he's been able to make up ground against modest fractions in the past, but again, doing it at Saratoga against this level of competition, if it's a speed favoring track, we will have to wait and see. I have my doubts on Hill Road, even though I like him a lot as a horse. I know my colleague Kaylee Shapiro was very impressed with him physically when she got to see him in the paddock ahead of the Peter Pan. She said he was really big horse, really filled out, very impressive physical stature. She had reminded her a little bit of a horse like Sierra Leone. So listen, very high praise there from somebody in Kaylee who knows what she's looking at when she looks at a horse. So it is one of those things where maybe this is a horse that just took a little bit more time to develop. Chad's been very patient with. The ownership group's been very patient. Obviously, after that fever at the Wood Memorial, not trying to rush the horse back, getting the horse just ready for the Belmont, could be sitting on a big race, but again, is going to have to outkick a fresh Sovereignty and is going to have to outkick a horse in Journalism who has never run a bad race and is going to have to also outfinish a horse like Baeza, who's going to be more forwardly placed as well. So it's going to be a tall task, but you're going to get a price. That's the thing. So this is always the benefit of going with a long shot like Hill Road, because those 3 horses I named are all going to take more money, and Rodriguez is probably going to take more money. Hill Road in a 6-horse field could be your 5th choice. I think as 5th choice, he makes some sense to include underneath. I'd sprinkle him in exotics, sprinkle him in a trifecta, that sort of thing. But I have a hard time seeing him as a top-level win contender in this spot, but certainly a very talented horse who has shown the ability to pass horses and has shown the ability to overcome, in some cases, track bias and in some cases, slow fractions, which might be necessary for Saturday at the Belmont Stakes. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this preview of Hill Road and the Spotlight Contender Series for the Belmont Stakes. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button here on NYRA Bets YouTube today. Additionally, make sure to use that promo code Belmont25 when signing up on NYRA Bets to get your $200 deposit match bonus and a free $25 added to your account. All right. For Matthew DeSantis, my name is Matthew DeSantis, in case you're not familiar. But want to wish you a great and profitable day at the races and remind you, friends, it's now post time.